Hey guys, and welcome back to the VanOrd Customs YouTube channel. So, I've been gone for a while, and as you can see, I've been pretty busy. So, I haven't uploaded anything in a bit. I kind of stopped doing the live at 9:45 thing, which I'll touch on in just a second. And overall, some major changes have happened, A, in my family, and B, with kind of how I want to run the channel and what I want to do. First and foremost, let's talk about Live at 9:45. Live at 9:45 is going to be back. It will be back this fall, and it will definitely look a little different. You see, for some reason, my internet service provider could not quite maintain the level of service that I need to run a weekly show. So I'm not sure what Live at 9:45 is going to look like, but I will guarantee you it will be back, and probably better than ever. Now, let's talk a little bit about what else I was doing while I was away. Fortunately for me, we had our second child, and as you know, babies take up a lot of time and energy. So that was a big part of why I wasn't uploading or editing any video. However, I did build this pretty sweet coupe, which is kind of the subject of what I wanted to talk about in this video. So real quick, let's give this car a rundown and talk a little bit about some of its killer features and unique things that are going on that kind of make it stand apart from some of the other things that I've done. First, let's talk about the fact that the hood opens, the trunk deck opens, and so do both doors. That afforded me a lot of leeway into what was going on. Now, the reason that all of these things open and function and do what they're supposed to do is because this body was initially a toy grade body put out by West Coast Customs. It was the Jesse James Coupe, and so it was purple. It had like an air ride suspension thing going on, and all of those under pieces have been eliminated, and I used the body to get what I need to make a cool car. Let's talk about the chassis. The chassis is actually two separate truggy chassis, cut and then extended. Now, I did nothing fancy underneath the body of this car. Everything is raw, it is not correct, it is mismatched, it is messed up, and I did that on purpose. The purpose of keeping everything raw and mismatched and cut up and jagged and all of that is because this is kind of supposed to be a ratty build. Something that they might have put together back in the day to run some moonshine or basically race on the side. And those guys were using crude tools, and they were definitely not all about refinement. So I got to play around and leave some of that other stuff unfinished, I guess you would say. Additionally, I am using Wraith axles, front and rear, and an SCX-10 transmission. The front axle has had the pinion gear removed. It's still locked all the way through, but the pinion gear has been removed to kind of free up and allow it to spin a little better so you're not pushing quite so much in the front of the car. The rear axle is powered, and it is powered by a Yeti drivetrain. That drivetrain is more than sufficient, and my gearing is actually geared a little low. I could use a new spur gear to kind of pick up my wheel speed and improve things there. On to the wheel and tire combination. I have the BF Goodrich tires on here with some black Proline wheels. These were kicking around my house. I wasn't using them on any projects. I chucked them on this car, and I just thought they'd fit the look. They look good. They're kind of an understated off-road look kind of tire on what's essentially an old coupe that people were going to run around on dirt roads with. The wheel tire combo works really well. I didn't have enough support in the foams, so I actually removed the stock tires off the toy grade RC and placed them inside of the tire that is on this car, allowing me to have a very, very stiff inner tire. That should allow me to not roll the beads off the tire like I was doing. I will tell you, though, that my choice to go with no shocks, yes, you heard it, no shocks, mainly because it costs no money. My choice to go with no shocks is no longer a very good choice since I took away the option of having that squish in the tires. Other unique things about the setup of this car include that I use the deluxe trusses on the Wraith axles to be able to put my servo on the axle but mount it very low. I'm running a Reefs RC servo, and it's all powered by a FlySky radio and that whole setup. Eventually, I plan to put some functioning headlights and taillights on this vehicle because they're plumbed for it. All I have to do is come up with a controller and basically solder them in. But that kind of does it for the main part of the chassis. Now let's talk about the body on this coupe. The body on this coupe was all tore down. Every single piece that could be removed was removed, and almost every part that went back on, repainted. Every part has been touched by me in some way to make it different than the original. And although this is not a completely custom scratch build, the paint went a long way to making this thing really come to life. To create this weathered look, I used a process of applying 3 different layers of paint. First, I used a metallic, shiny style of paint. Then on top of that, I put a primer that is brown. And on top of that layer, although this car often looks kind of purple in photos and actually in daylight, I used a deep blue paint on top of all of those. Then I spent an entire evening wet sanding this car down to show the patina that you see now. Although it does look like, for the most part, I kind of splotched things here and there and did a good job keeping it random, it's very much not random. I wet sanded through layer after layer with 400 grit sandpaper, which allowed me to bring that patina out from below. After doing that all, I hit it with a mix of black wash. I only was able to do it once though because I had a bad reaction with the paint and I got some alligatoring and some peeling, which I was able to solve mostly, but there still is some, and you'll notice it in photos and so on and so forth. It's one of the things that I'm least happy about with how well this car came out. Onto the interior of this vehicle, one of the first things you will notice is the Scale license plate floorboards. Now, I've sold Scale license plates on my website, VanOrdCustoms.com, for over the last 2 years. And as a result, I have amassed some license plates that either didn't get shipped out because I didn't like how they turned out, or I made an extra here or there, so on and so forth. I took all of those plates, put them on the floorboards, and kind of made a license plate collage floorboard for this car. I felt that it really fit the era that I was looking at. Lastly, you have the engine compartment. Inside that engine compartment is a motor that was with the car. I just painted it. I didn't even do a great job at that. If there's one thing I'd like to retouch and begin working on a little more, that was probably my area. I've really enjoyed the process of building this car for a couple of reasons. One of the things you will notice when you get involved in this hobby is that it is very, very easy to dive off the deep end. Get involved in builds that take months, tear everything apart, rebuild everything, take a body and cut it into 100 pieces and put it all back together. And that stuff takes time. It's taxing on your brain, it's taxing on your organizational skills, and your end result doesn't happen quickly. To sum things up, I had a blast building this vehicle. It was nice to take a step back, enjoy my hobby again, and not work quite so hard at something I have so much fun with. I urge each and every one of you to get out there, build something cool, and have a blast in this hobby. And until next time, I'll catch you guys all later.